Hey folks, Steve here with another Deadly Woods video. In this video, we'll be looking at turn 5, which is quite late into the German offensive now, but we are getting closer and closer to reaching the halfway point where the game will start to shift to the Allies focusing on their counteroffensives and collapsing the bulge, as it were. But the game is still pretty tight. The Germans are sitting at a nice and healthy 4 victory points, though this one here is really just a happenstance that it's under control right now. The Germans are fighting tooth and nail to try to sort of win this sector, and to continue to push back and make sure that they can hold on to this hex. We still have the Allied sort of breakout or um, I don't know, set of reinforcements that have complicated the German position. The Germans nearly were able to shut that sector down, but it was not to be. So they are going to have to figure something out. The Allies are there in force. Luxembourg has the protection of multiple units, a river with broken bridges, and the engineer unit for, I think I put, what, the 8th down in here? Yes, the 8th Corps engineers. And as a reminder for folks, as this came up as a comment, question in the last video, engineers provide some benefits, so they have to be placed in town or villages that the Allies control and are in supply, I think. They have to be in supply. They can go out of supply once they're placed, but they still provide benefits even out of supply. And what they do is that within 3 hexes of the engineer unit itself, it provides a defender shift to the left for Allied defenders within that range for the engineer. So it just makes it harder for the Germans to make progress because of that. They also have the ability to blow bridges within 3 hexes of the unit on a move action. So it's sort of an ability I haven't really bothered to make much use of because I haven't really needed to, but something to keep in mind. So this area down here is actually to the Allied advantage in terms of numbers and units. They have a lot more steps down there, so even in attritional combats, the Germans could get worn down, and it may force the Germans to have to retreat or do something else down here to save the situation. Otherwise, the Germans still have good control of Bastogne at this point. They have Houffalize, though it is becoming a little bit more of a congested area for combats, and all it's going to take is the Allies forcing a retreat to take it. In the north, there's a lot of units lined up, a lot of different potential combats that are kind of gridlocked, but there is some space here for the Germans to try to push, and all they really need to do is focus on this unit here, push him out of the way, and they have a path to Eupen, which would be enough for a potential victory. So the pressure is definitely on. The Germans are realizing they are out of time, or running out of time. They don't have much more time left before they are put on the back foot operationally, and their advantage in action shits is going to start to go away, because it's around this time that the weather starts to clear historically, and the Allies can use their air power, and then they just sort of have an initiative flip over to them situation for the rest of the game. And then it's really about the Allies trying to collapse the German lines, and situation to see if we can beat them back to where they started, right back along the West Wall area over here. So let's look at the special rules for the turn, I guess, just quick to get that out of the way. So the 5th turn, the U.S. will get to place a U.S. air supply marker. That's really of more value if the Allies were besieged in Bastogne, so I'm not sure the best place for this chit when we look at that part, but we will have it. Oh, there we go. The 29th Armor Brigade is released from behind the Meuse River, so there is one British unit that we had way over here, so I'm taking this marker off to denote that he is able to operate and join the fray. Then the U.S. player still has their ability to hold a reinforcement chit, and we'll talk about that in a second. And they still get their delay asset as well. And so technically I should have removed this traffic marker last turn, and I forgot about it. I don't think it made that much of a difference, but I should have removed that marker. So that marker is done, I believe, for the game. And then likewise, the Germans no longer have the Greif marker. And so that is gone, or I believe it has to be removed. And let's see if there's any other of the gotchas I need to keep in mind. Yeah, I think we just have to take those markers off, and they're gone now. The game doesn't expressly say to remove them, but you're supposed to place them every turn. So if they're not available to be placed, then you would have them removed from the map, and they don't come back in. So that makes it a little bit easier for these guys, the allies, to actually take back Neuchateau. But the U.S. still gets their delay marker, which at the moment they may need to put into Eupen just to make sure that the Germans can't get all the way up there, in the northeast, that it's not open season. They've got something in there to hold it while the other actions are going. That delay asset is just super valuable. It's just super strong because it allows the Allies to not have a completely open backfield somewhere. They have something to slow down the Germans so they don't have a complete takeover situation. And just to show, the rest of the special rules now for the rest of the game are all super simple. Just a reminder that the U.S. player gets that reinforcement action, the delay chit, and then a few more units get released from behind the Muse, basically. So, like, we are now, I mean, they're not even really special rules, they're just reminders to consider, but we are past that point of the game. Now it's just, both sides are fighting it out to the best of their ability to what they can do. Let's take a look at the chits for the turn. So in this case, we have the three formations chit again, good strong chit. We have the move or combats rather. We have reinforcement chits as usual. We have the supply checks as usual. And then there was one special thing here with the recipe. So last turn, if we controlled both Saint-Vith and Bastogne, we would get both the 5th Panzer and the 6th Panzer markers. In this turn, it's similar but different. Basically, the way this is going to work is if the Germans control Saint-Vith and Bastogne, they receive one of the 5th or 6th Panzer chits. I think I'm going to go with the 6th, which is why it's on camera. I might decide before we actually get into that part of the turn what we do. I don't think I have to make the choice until after the asset allocation. So it's just going to be, what do I think will work most? If I go with the 6th, it means I'm going to focus on getting to Eupen. If it is if I change it to the 5th, it's going to be more about trying to knock these guys out and secure this victory point hex. So it's really, which victory point hex do I want to take, and do I think I could hold more easily versus the other, I guess, or which makes the most sense. The one advantage to coming over to here is maybe if I knock some of that loose, I will have a greater ability to come out this way and snag another one or whatever. So that's the decision I have to make. It's going to be the 5th or the 6th when I first set this up, I was thinking I would focus on Eupen, but I'm not 100% sure I'm going to actually do that. The Allies get their move and combat chits, reinforcement chit, and then they get their special held one over here as usual, where they can choose to do reinforcements instead. If important to note, the reinforcements that would come in on the first chit are these guys. So there's some U.S. armor. I realize the focus is not great. So these two units would go into J, which is sort of northeast or east of Eupen, and then these guys are going to B or C. So at this point, they're either coming into Luxembourg or elsewhere in the south, and so definitely incentivizes us to take certain actions. I mean, I think the reality is when you look at what options are there for the Germans to still get something, they could still try to make an attack on Luxembourg happen, but they're going to have a heck of a hard time making it work. They just don't have enough combat units down here. They needed to come down here and attack to nullify the river bonus, and that's just probably not going to happen at this point. So spending effort down here maybe wouldn't be a good idea. Spending effort over here is going to be worthwhile. The thing is, the more reinforcements that come in here, this whole area is just going to start to blow up for the Germans. It's going to be kind of gnarly when it happens. The Germans are going to have to blow some bridges as they go, I think, in retreating. But fighting over here is still a possibility. We could probably make something like this work. It's just going to be a tough call, I think. We may even have this unit come over here, blow the bridge, just to make it harder for the Allies to come up this way to Bastogne if we're pushing down this way. So, but a lot of interesting puzzles to be solved here on where the Germans should focus. Do they think they can get one more victory point and hold on to this one and get an automatic victory, or is that just too far away? And I think what I need to do is probably off camera do some analysis to say how many actions would I need to take Eupen, because right now I would need to attack and clear this hex, then move, and then attack again to take Eupen. And there's a certain order of chits that need to come out for it to work that way before the Allies even get their chit. And I think it just won't work all the way for them. So, okay, let's go take a look at the asset placement step of the turn. Okay, in terms of the asset placement this turn, things are actually pretty straightforward. So the two engineer units that the Allies have, and I think these are the only engineer units they'll ever have, I'm going to keep one down here in Luxembourg. It is actually really key to the defense, and as long as he stays there, it's going to be almost impossible for the Germans to take the city at this point. Now, if we moved it, it would still be hard for the Germans to take Luxembourg, but they have a better chance, and I just want to make sure that the Germans cannot win by taking Luxembourg, so the engineers have to stay there. The other engineer unit is up here, and I realize I kind of need him there as well, because if we remove the engineers here, then the Germans have a possibility of focusing on this left flank, and this road runs up to Liege, and also allows road juncture access to Eupen from another angle. And so I need to kind of hold the line, but knowing that the Allies are going to get some reinforcements nearby, they can kind of help plug this gap potentially. I thought about moving this up here, but the reality is it won't really matter if the Germans get past this unit, because this unit wouldn't get the benefits of the engineers. And then depending on how the chits come out, these units are just going to be attacking Eupen right away, and one shift isn't going to save that delay unit against the massive armor that the Germans would have. So from that perspective, it just makes sense to Leave the engineers here, try to keep this safe, and we'll have to just see what may come as the turn unfolds. So it's like, you try to do what you can to keep the Germans from getting that auto victory. The limited options because the Allies just have fewer action chits, period. But they at least know they're going to get a guarantee of some chits coming up after a few German activations, and they can at least do something. So there's still an element of, fate that is going to decide kind of what happens here, die rolls and chit pulls. But I think the Allies are doing everything they can within reason to make the long game in their favor, at least the best that they can do right now. You can see, I mean, they have units in the backfield, stuff they can do. They just need the movement chits to get them to where they need to be. And that's kind of where things stand. So we're past that part of the phase. Oh, I should point out the Allies got. I organized my eliminated units pile over here, but the Allies got some additional artillery for some of their missing corps. So now the Third Corps, the Fifth Corps, the Eighth Corps, and then even the what is it? The Seventh Corps all have artillery, as does the uh, British units. If for some reason they were involved in a combat, which may not happen for a while, they also have artillery, and the same rules apply as have always applied in the game, which is those artillery markers assets can be used once per action chit, whichever action chit it may be. So when you're really looking at it, it's each artillery is 4 combat strength, can be used up to 2 assets per combat, assuming the right requirements exist where those assets can be used. And we have enough now as the Allies that those artillery units can even, or artillery markers, can even be used in big combats to add what is effectively 8 combat factors to an attack, and that would be enough to make a decent odd shift to start pushing the Germans back. So it is happening. The Allied reinforcements, the capability, the surprise of the offensive has worn off. The Allies are going to have much greater strength to punch back, and they're going to punch back very, very hard, I suspect, as we get into this. So that's something the Germans need to watch out for now. They could get lucky by attacking certain units. If those units were not part of a corps and were far enough away, they couldn't get artillery support. That situation may still be the case in various places. But now it is much harder. It is much more likely that in any given area, there will be artillery support feasible. The tricky thing that the Germans could be trying to do is do multiple attacks against units of the same corps, so that that one artillery piece can only be used to support one combat in a given chit. So if it's the big German attack and they're doing attacks all along the line or all over the place, to try to drain those artillery assets and sort of say, hey, I'm going to do an attack here. The Allies going to use their artillery, but the real main focused attack might be further down here, and now they can't use. The Allies couldn't use that artillery marker anymore. And that next attack will be stronger, but the Ally doesn't necessarily know. This is where it gets into like solitaire doesn't work as well, where the Allied player might go, aha, no, I think they're going to attack down here also, so I'm not going to bother wasting my artillery up here. So you really just, when playing solitaire, you're trying to think through, does it make sense for them to use the artillery here or not? Do they suspect other attacks are going to occur where that artillery would be more useful? And you just kind of have to, I guess, play it by ear. But there you go. So now we need to decide what is the first chit going to be for the Germans. This is a very, very difficult choice for me right now. Because I think we're just so close to being able to make something happen. But we need to take Eupen. If I think I'm going to bet all my marbles on Eupen, what do I need? I need combat, hope to eliminate or move this guy out of the way. Then I need movement, and then another combat. with the move and combat chits, we can pick what they are, right? So we would say move and combat. Um, we could get the same effect by using a 3 formation chit, for instance, or even the 6th Panzer chit. Um, so this is such a tough decision. Um, I mean, I could just make it. I could make it a general. I could make it the 6th Panzer, but we kind of lose out on a move. If we make it general combat, we lose out on a general combat later. Um, oh man, this is such a tough decision. Okay, I'm realizing I'm taking too long on camera. I'm going to take myself off. I need to think through this some more before I pick that first chit. Very tough decision. I mean, this is just very difficult to determine what will make sense. I could see it being we do 6th Panzer Army. Then maybe we're lucky to get a move in a combat, and then if we really needed it, the 3 formation shit after that. That would be an order that would work out for this. But we know there's going to be Allied reinforcements in J after 2 German chits. So that's what we need to think through. Can we get to Eupen and take it in 2 chits or not? And does it come out in the right order? So let me go ponder this. Okay, so I think I figured out how we would look to take Eupen, again, don't know the right way to pronounce that. Sorry, guys. I would have to get these 2 chits in a row. 6th Panzer Army first, which would be our initiative chit. And then we need 3 formations to come up. So how would this work? Well, we would do the 6th Panzer. We would move units around through here to set up a strong attack against this unit. Ideally, eliminate this unit somehow. Now he's going to get artillery support, so we'd have to deal with that. So he's really got 8 combat strength, not 4. You have to attack with armor units, push him back, reduce him, get him back here somewhere. And then what we would need is the 3 formations chit to come up as the first chit drawn from the cup, ideally. We would then select one of our armor formations. And they would have to move up through here, somehow finagle a way to come up to here, and then attack the delay unit and take Eupen proper. And even then, the Allies probably have artillery in that case. Probably. I'd have to go double check how that will work, but I'm pretty certain that would be the case. So, could we do it? I think it's feasible, but it's very unlikely that it will end up this way. I mean, it's essentially a 1 in 8 chance of it occurring, but it's worth a shot. I mean, if we took Eupen and then we managed to do other actions fast enough, we could secure a victory. So, I mean, I think it's worth a try, because whatever damage we do towards that area anyway will just help us. And even if we don't have a full capture of the city, we might be threatening Liege anyway. So I think that is what, I guess we'll try it. I really don't know that it's going to work out well. We could maybe have other chits come up, depending on how we move after defeating this unit. Assuming we do, we could come up here and kind of block the J reinforcements somehow. But it's all going to be very, very tight. I'm not sure how well it's going to work. I don't think there's any other obvious move elsewhere. I mean, we've still got massive problems down here that we wouldn't be able to necessarily resolve all in a couple of chits. And really the important thing is, well, yeah, I just don't know. It's so tough. It's tough. Every decision, like there's something to be gained no matter what we pick, but it's still slim margins to even achieve what we really want to achieve. But I do think it is worth trying to still push because so long as we have this initiative, the more we beat up the allies before they have initiative, the better off we are. Probably. There's still a fair number of U.S. reinforcements to come onto the board. And if we can keep chipping away at them, we should be able to be in a good defensive posture as the Germans. So I think what we will do, we will have the 6th Panzer Army chit be the chit that we play first. I think we can make gains either way. It doesn't really hurt us. If we don't pull the three formations chit next, I mean that's going to be the luck. If we get that, then we might be in really great shape. If we don't get it, we could probably still do something useful on the board. So I think that's what we're going to do. So off camera, I will go ahead and do the movement and the combats for the 6th Panzer Army, and we'll see where things end up. Yeah. Okay, so we had a really good chance of eliminating that unit. I managed due to replacements and artillery used had a 6-1 that was reduced to a 5-1 because of the defender being in woods. If I had rolled a 5 or a 6, we would have eliminated the unit, but instead I rolled a 4. So it was a DR star, which means that we probably are not going to get to Eupen this turn and take it because this unit is going to stay here with his Zocs and be a nuisance. So we are kind of a little SOL there, and that's really too bad. So we're going to go to the cup, and we'll see what happens. It's just a real shame. We were awfully close to being able to make that work. We've used up some of our rocket artillery, but there you go. So going to go to the cup. Lots in here that could come up. And we get supply check. Everybody is in supply, so not really an issue, and that does not count as a German chit. So we'll go back to the cup again, and we'll pull German reinforcement. So not what we wanted to get, actually, at all. That is too bad. We got a couple of infantry units that are going to L or M. I do actually think that M may be the better choice. And we'll have these guys 1, 2, I think they're going to have to stop over here. Let's go 1, 2, half. Oh, and they could cross. So they will repair a bridge. Sorry, you guys can't see it. They came over here and repaired a bridge just so these guys have an easier path to get home if that's what they need to do. We use one of our bridge rebuild markers. Good enough from there. So this means that the next chit will have to be a US chit. And they are going to go ahead. It doesn't matter what US chit we would draw. They're going to go ahead and use the reinforcement chit. They're going to play it now and get it taken care of. Well, I guess technically we do have to draw for it because it could be the first reinforcement chit anyway. So set up this guy aside. And okay, so we got a movement or combat chit. We're going to put this guy back. And we will use the reinforcement chit. E1 goes into J. And then E2 would go into B or C. So I think I actually have one of these guys pop into B. Oh, you know what? We're not going to be able to do that legally, so he'll just have to come in this way and then move like so. Or no, he still can't because of the stacking. Right, okay. Just do that. And then up in the north, the one problem is as they come into J, there may be some special rules related to J. I need to double check. I'm not sure where it was in the rules. There's something about area J that we have to keep in mind. And now I'm not going to be able to find it. Stand by. Okay, I did find the rule I was worried about. It is in 10.64, so the 5th Armored Division of the Allies cannot go more than 3 hexes from J, so 1, 2, 3. I can put them in Eupen or Eupen, and so I have them set up here, and they are good to go. So the ability of the Germans to take those areas is now much more greatly reduced, and it is unlikely the Germans will be able to take it. And that kind of helps seal the deal that the Germans are not going to win an automatic victory this game, the way that shakes out. Okay, so going to go back to the cup, and we pull a German move for combat. I do think move is the right action here, and I'll take care of this. This is a global move, so we're going to try to see what we can set up for future attacks. We'll be right back. Okay, here we are after the German move. Now I'm taking a bit of a risk. I moved some mechanized units from here down to here, rather than send them down here where they may needed more than otherwise, but I'm hoping to be able to just keep the Allies from doing too much down here for the time being, and try to make use of this over here to eliminate units. So that's the goal. That's the thinking that we're going to try to make happen here. It's going to be a little tricky, I think, to make work, but we'll see what happens. So going back to the cup, we pull the other reinforcements. So couple of things here. So we are going to get to do the air supply. I'm going to set it aside for the moment and see where everybody else ends up. So units marked as E3 go into E or F. I think E is definitely the preferred option, and they will go 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12. Yep. And then the units marked E4 all go into G. And I believe the 33rd and the 51st may have movement restrictions on them because they are British. So they would go up into Liege, but I believe they have a restriction. 33rd Armor and 51st Infantry. 33rd Armor and 51st. Yes, they are stuck behind the Meuse. So really the best thing we can probably do, 1, 2, is separate them out a little bit just so there's no easy places for the Germans to go. And that's it for the time being. Those guys will be released. It looks like on turn 9, I guess. And then we have the air supply marker. So the rules behind this are kind of interesting. This would have ordinarily been for Bastogne, I think. So once per game on the second Allied reinforcement chit of turn 5, the Allies may place the U.S. air supply marker. It may be placed in any Allied-controlled town or village in clear terrain. U.S. units may trace supply, a supply path up of up to 5 hexes to the supply marker thereafter for any purpose apart from replacements and artillery support. The trace of supply has the normal terrain and Zoc restrictions. If the Germans take the town or village, the air supply marker is removed from the game. So are there any isolated places where this is most valuable? I don't know that there's really any obvious places. And it has to be Allied controlled. So, I mean, I'm not really sure. Right now in our game, I'm not sure this has much use, to be honest, because the Allies down here get supply from C and B, which they're not necessarily going to lose, so we don't need it down here. We can't put it in New Chateau because it's Axis controlled. And I don't think we're going to see those guys get supply cut off anytime soon. So this is really just insurance. There's no towns to use back there. If we put it here, the Germans are just going to take it, probably. So I'm not really sure there's any valuable place to put this, truth be told. I do not see where it would be that valuable. Maybe we put it in Bertone, just in case these guys somehow get encircled. That's really the only option that even makes sense, because nowhere else will it even matter. And even if we lose this, I don't think it really matters. Yeah, so we'll put it in Bertone. I don't think it's needed. We may never even need it, and if the Germans ever take Bertone back and that marker is lost, in our game there just is not much of a reason to worry about it. So small bonus, but not much for us to care about. And we're gonna go back to the cup. From here on out, it can be German stuff. That's not a problem. And it is a German supply check. Once again, German supply is not really an issue. Because of this check, though, the Germans could decide to go hog wild if they really wanted to. Since their supply checks are over, we'll pull the next chit, and we get second German reinforcement. So these guys, let's see, E2 goes into K, E3 into M. E2 into K. All right. And we could do 1, 2, 3. Well, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then they could come in here. And then these guys down in M would probably likewise want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and they'd get, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know if that's actually any better. Yeah, they need to come down over here to help, I think, is what's going to happen. Okay, so German reinforcements are done. The Germans are only going to get one more turn of reinforcements after this. Okay, going back to the cup. Pretty good chance that a German action could come up. Pretty good chance an Allied action could come up at this point. And we pull Allied, combat, or move. I don't think there's a whole lot of combats that they want to do right now. I think what they need to do is movement, and take Neufchâteau back and get set up here. That's probably their best move right now, just to secure the situation, and they can worry about attacks later. So I'm going to do the Allied move, and then I'll come back. All right, here we are after the Allied move, so really just starting to push up and get in position for attacks. We retook Neufchâteau before the Germans could get back over here, and have some armor kind of guarding this flank, and maybe going to head down here to cause problems.
this unit had to take the rough path so he wouldn't get in the way of the armor's road movement. Technically, Neuchâtel is empty, but it's going to be a lot harder for the Germans to try to come down here, and very likely we'll be able to get some more units down here soon enough. So um, I guess I could just, for safety's sake, leave this guy right there. Is probably the safer move. Doesn't really matter too much, but we'll be on the safe side. And that's it. So now we're going to go back to the cup. Could be anybody's chit at this point, and we pull the three formations chit. So the Germans will need to decide which formations will they use and what is their intended purpose. I do wonder if they might try to attack Luxembourg and see if they can't take it. The problem will be, even if they were to take it, they've just got so many units over here to deal with. So, what moves could they take that would be very advantageous at this point? They could try to make some attacks over here and just be trying to retake Neuchâtel, but I think they're hurting now. I'm not sure how much this chit's going to help them. Limited attacks in a few important places could be useful, but they're starting to run out of obvious places of gains. The Allies do have now some reserves. They've got some of the second armor back here moving down the road to support this area. This infantry is coming down this way. This other second armor is coming down to support. So the Allies are kind of drawing up their battle lines, and they're going to be able to operate effectively. So the Germans just need to figure out where is it going to make the most sense to reverse that progress. Down here, there's just not much more that they're going to be able to do. So it is tricky. Like we're operating in a very tricky space right now. What can be done to improve the German situation? We are arriving at the point now where the Germans will have to decide how they can defend and where they're going to defend, and ultimately they're now knocked down to 3 victory points. So they're kind of at the point where they have to hold everything that they've got to be able to win the game, or take something else and hold that. And I think they're going to have a really hard time doing that. So, yeah, I'm going to take some time off camera and figure out what formations are going to act and what they're going to do, and I'll show you the aftermath of that. So what we ended up doing is we activated the 26th Infantry, the 116th Armor, and the 15th Mechanized all around here. Those were our 3 formations, and we managed to knock some Americans back with the DR Star, and then basically knock this guy out of supply. And we did try to attack him. It was like 8-7 with 1 shift to the right for these guys being out of supply, and it was a no effect result. So we tried to make something happen so that we could completely clear this out and be able to come down in force to retake Neuchâtel. We didn't quite get it. We're awfully close, but not quite. But we are set up for a good next chit. So the next chit will kind of be important. If it is the German combat chit, they're going to be in relatively good shape, though they've used a lot of their artillery assets. So we're going to pull it, and what do we get? All right, German combat. German combat is up. So we're certainly going to have a combat here. We're probably going to have a combat here. We may have combats down here. I'm not 100% sure yet. And various places along the line there will be combat. So this could be an important combat round. We could actually do quite well and further hurt the Allies, but we're going to be running out of gas soon, and any step losses we take will not be easily replaced. So we'll have to be careful of that. When that is done, the Allied marker is the last chit, and I guess depending on the results of this combat, will determine what side of the chit they're going to play. Remember, they have the option. The Allies can have 2 moves, they can have 2 combats, they can have 1 of each. The Germans have to do 1 move and 1 combat. So in this case, the Germans had to do combat. They probably would have wanted to do combat anyway, but that was the forced uh, option that had to be taken here. So let's see what happens. Okay, here we are after the German attacks. Amusingly enough, they didn't even destroy this guy due to artillery support, and they got a BL1. So much for that situation. Down below, there were attacks here to try to get the Allies to use up their artillery, and it worked out to the Allies' favor. They got a BL1. There was an AL1 result here. Basically, if I had rolled a 6, we were on the 1 to 3 table. It had worked out that way without the artillery. We would have captured Luxembourg. We just needed a 6, but I rolled a 2. So Germans aren't making any headway here, just barely holding on. This guy's getting hurt and won't last much longer. These guys will be able to counterattack. So the real question now for the last chit of the turn is, do the Allies move? Do they perform combat? And if they do perform combat, where would they go? Um, I think some obvious places for combat are going to be over here, uh, and that alone could cause the Germans some major grief. There's not too many other places. The Allies did get pushed back over here, but they kept the bridge because they expect they should be able to push back through eventually. We would like movement to try to restore supply over here. So it's almost like, whatever we do might be useful, but it's kind of tough to say what's the right best move across the board here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll a die. There's pros and cons to doing either. So 1 through 3, it's a move. 4 through 6, it's a combat. Okay, we're going to do a combat. And again, so there's going to be combat through here, largely over here, then over here, and maybe some combats elsewhere. But the main thing is we're probably going to find that the German situation here is about to get blown open very hard. So I'll take care of that combat action, and when we get back, we'll sort of round out the rest of the video. Okay, so the attacks went all right. So we did force these guys back. And so the Allies are about to start sweeping through here and causing all sorts of havoc. Now, by not moving or giving up some stuff, I tried an attack over here. It didn't go well. We tried some stuff through here, and we did force some Germans back, which was nice, as well as up here. So we're just doing a little bit of poking and prodding to just reduce the German strength before we can actually go on major offensives. The artillery is really helping. Now, by not moving, we gave up our opportunity to save these guys, but they seem to have held up all right on their own. And then, there's obviously more things we can work away of, acting. But it's okay. I think it's okay that we wait. I mean, the main thing is we're just prepared to have a lightning swift series of actions once the initiative goes to the Allies, because they're very likely just going to smash their way through here, and they're going to come racing up behind the Germans and penetrating behind their front lines, maybe encircling Bastogne. We're sort of working our way into being able to punch through here and reducing the Germans' ability to hold on to what they've got. The really critical thing is if the Germans lose Bastogne, if they lose Houffalize, then that's probably going to be game. Saint-Vith we would like to take back, but it's really going to depend on a few things. So I think the Allies are figuring out they can win. They just need to position themselves well to do it. And I think they are getting in a good place that they should be able to achieve some victories here. It's just they need to delay a little bit longer for that to really work. And so there is where we have it at the end of turn 5, which means we are going to go into turn 6. Something to keep in mind for that is that during turn 6, if the German player chooses the first chit, meaning they have initiative if they have 3 or more victory points. Otherwise, the Allied player chooses the first chit. So here in this case, yeah, it controls 3 victory point hexes in supply. So next turn, the Germans will have initiative, but that will be the last turn that they have initiative. And from there, it's all allied all the time. They only have 3 victory points at the moment, right? They've got Bastogne, they've got Houffalize, they got Saint-Vit. We almost got Eupen, however that's pronounced. We were close. If the chits had come out slightly differently, it was feasible. We kept having an opportunity to get Luxembourg. We just couldn't quite get what we needed. And so we, as I mentioned in the last video, the Germans have tasted that automatic victory. They're so close to being where they really needed to be. And they still have, I mean, it was feasible that they could have even fought over this river line and started going to Marche, but I never pushed hard enough for that. And maybe in retrospect, I should have tried harder at that angle. That would have helped a lot. But as it stands, they got close. They got close, but I think the Allies are going to start to shift the game heavily in their favor, and the fight to push the Germans back will be well underway here very soon. Okay, guys, well, that's it for turn 5. We'll see you in the next one for turn 6. If you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more, you can subscribe. And otherwise, take care and keep gaming. Okay, I have my camera off the tripod. I need to show a correction that I needed to make. I realized after the fact that I had moved the 11th armor, out here as a reinforcement and then came over here. I could not have done that because the 11th Armor Division is locked behind the Meuse, and I needed to put one of these guys on it, but I didn't realize, and this is really one of these problems with, like, even with the special roles. It's like, oh, okay, I can keep in mind that these guys are special, but I guess in the future what I need to do is have some kind of counter or bingo chit on these guys, even when they're on the turn track, to remember, hey, the 51st Infantry, the 53rd Infantry, the 33rd Armor, blah, 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 blah. I thought I was doing pretty good keeping track of who all needed those markers, but I missed it, and these guys are all the 11th Armor. It's not just British units that are held behind the Meuse, it's also American units. And these guys should have stayed in Sedan, but I had them move. And they actually even were involved in combats, and I needed to fix that because it was sort of a violation of the rules. And so I reversed time a little bit. So where before, in a first combat over here, the unit had a DR star for me rolling a 6 on a 2-to-1. It was instead, a 6-to-1 on a 2-to-1. And so it was a defender eliminated, so it was a paratrooper defeated. Then for the units that were here, I had to recalculate the combat that I had there because that unit had artillery used in the combat that it shouldn't have had access to. And that ended up, if you factor in what I rolled, it would have been a DR. And so these guys got a DR star here, so they got pushed back for being out of supply, and everything else just worked out that they got kicked back. And so that meant that the Germans had a step loss that they didn't actually take. So I managed to remember what the combat results were enough that working backwards from what the result was versus the combat factors involved, and I managed to fix it. But what this means is, we didn't have this flanking armor coming down the road. They're all the way back here still. And this situation near Neufchâteau is actually much worse than I thought. So I wanted to make sure you guys saw that. I caught it, like I was doing the video editing to put the clips together for the video, and I realized my mistake looking at the unit counters. And so we needed to fix that. This does give a tremendous improvement to the German situation, ultimately. So they are going to be trying very hard to get into Neufchâteau, and they may be able to do it. This next turn, that will get them back up to 4, and then they can continue to push their last turn of momentum, whatever they have left, to try to get to 5. So swinging a little bit back into the Germans' favor there, but we'll have to see how it goes. Okay, guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.